Let me welcome everybody to the Economic Development, Community Development Committee meeting. Just before we get started, just a couple of notes. These are working committee meetings. We're glad to have our guest with us today, but public comment and things are really reserved more for our public hearings when they occur at City Council or Planning Commission or things like that. So we're delighted to have you here. These are broadcast on the city's website, YouTube, so you have access with them from home or in person. So on that note, I would ask our wonderful clerk to call the roll.
Here.
Present.
Here. All right. Today we're going to have a couple of discussions and from some of our distinguished business leaders in town, and it's my pleasure to welcome my longtime friend Diane Sumter up to the podium to tell us about our CDBE program. Thank you for joining us today, Ms. Sumter.
Well, thank you for having me, and I certainly am just very grateful that today we are talking about something we've been working on a very long time. And to this CDBE enhancement program, we have Todd Corley here, Diane Russian from AOS is on the way, and Mary Bell. But these are three of the businesses who are CDBE, LLR licensed, and ready to go. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how we got here. I sent the report out, et cetera. But the mayor called some of us together some time ago. And the reason was he had met with Mr. Corley, and he wanted to see how can we move this further. So this meeting is a testament of what can be done when you collaborate, pull together, and move further. Upon him calling and after the meeting, it was determined that the CDBE would be the pathway to go. And on going through that list, the City of Columbia has a CDBE program. We went through everyone on the list to check to see who was CDBE, and we needed them to have a labor license and utility. And so upon finding that they had those two things, we met with the city. He was extremely helpful. We met with the OBO office. They were extremely helpful, Tony Lawton and some others, and we began to move this further. And today we're here to talk about where we are now. One of the things that we saw is that there's a list of TAP providers. And on that list, there was no diversity on the list who was ready to lay taps. And what we were charged to do was to see how we could get them ready to lay taps. Mr. Corley was able to pull the Ferguson together, and Ferguson said, "You're welcome to come out to our facility." And when we come out to our facility, Mr. Corley and others used their equipment to show how we lay the tap, what happens, and why it's a real issue. Upon digging further, we saw that the city had rules and regulations. Part of those rules and regulations was the insurance. It was extremely costly to get the insurance, and we wanted to see was it another pathway. So when Clint and I met, the pathway, it said, okay, let's see how we can get mentors or contractors who are already insured and licensed to partner with contractors who are licensed as CDBE and move forward. At that time, the engineering department sent several projects that's ready to go. So today I stand in front of you to let you know we have done what we were charged to do. DESA was asked to facilitate and put together a program together. And we worked with the OBO office, and I must tell you that your engineering office was phenomenal. Clint worked with us hand in hand all the way, and today we have 3 projects that are ready to come out. We have 3 businesses who are CDBE ready to go. One isn't here, but she's on the way yet. That's Diane Russian. And I wanted diversity in it. So you see that this isn't about black, white, blue, or green. It's about qualified businesses who can do business. So I want to thank the city for all that you've done in this regard. I'm ready to answer any questions, and Clint might have something that he'd like to add to it because he's been a partner all the way, and he and his team went back and found these 3 projects, and we're expecting the one of them to go out soon through procurement, and he can certainly give us more information on that. So if you have any questions, I'm good.
Any questions for Ms. Sumter?
I was going to say, I would like for either of you to kind of explain the significance of the TAP list and being on that TAP list or not being on it.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Diane. I appreciate that. I've really enjoyed working with you throughout the years, but also on this assignment as well. You provide that excellent, gentle pressure we need to move forward, so we appreciate that. So the significance, Councilwoman Herbert, is that we're very particular about making live taps on our water system and making those because, we're protecting public health. And so we've got a set of qualifications that have to be met and criteria. And we've got some folks that we think are well positioned to do that. And there's some experience requirements as well. What we were seeing was we weren't realizing the opportunity there for folks that could purchase the equipment and that have the capabilities to be able to demonstrate that. And so we were kind of in a catch-22 there, and we think this opens up a window of opportunity there so that folks can demonstrate that capability, then get on the TAP list. And once they do, that's really an entry to bid any of our work and be successful pursuing that. So I'm really excited about this and how we might move forward together, and I appreciate Ms. Diane's work with us. Thank you.
Good job.
Let me ask you a quick question, Clint. So this is wonderful for the taps. Now, flowing opposite, is this same format going to overlay patching roads, patching water, main leaks, all of the processes? I know we have some subcontractors in place. Can we take this same approach to that opportunity?
Yes, sir, we can. We believe that in order to make mainline repairs and fix our leaks, you need to be on that approved list because you may have to do some wet work there. And so this is an entry to get on that list and then be part of the indefinite delivery contracting program that we have. But it's really getting on that TAP list as the first step, and then I think it expands our opportunities as well. So
Quicker
yes, sir.
to react to
Yes, sir.
issues. Perfect.
Absolutely.
Great.
And
Thank
let
you.
me add to that. The city is requiring that 5 inspections be done on taps. And they will send their inspector out to inspect 5 projects to know that it's done well. And what you're talking about also, the other ones, we've got some businesses ready to go. So there might be even a quicker pathway to some of that. And if that's some of the things that we need to begin looking at, we have some businesses ready. What we saw is that we had businesses, but they weren't approved by the inspector, even though they'd done taps 10 years ago. Corley worked with Trussell Brothers 10 years ago and did it, but this time it's file proof. Once the contract is awarded, it will be awarded to the prime. That prime then it'll have a large CDBE requirement in it, and the city's inspector will come out and say, job well done each time. And today we have one that's being looked at. Corley is already on a project with their mentor, with their prime contractor, and the city will be sending out the inspector. So I think you give us maybe 3 months, we can be able to tell you it's happened. And then you'll see that TAP list, which is about 10 or 12 on it, and their names are on it, but they don't have a sign saying they can do this type of work. That list then will be complete, and we'll know that we have diversity in that aspect of business.
Perfect. Thank you.
I would just want to follow up on what Mr. Brennan was saying is I realize that taps are a more complicated thing, but I think on some of the other easier things we do, whether it's repairing potholes and other things, that we build on the success that you're seeing here, because it helps us. I mean, we're in a difficult time, everybody is, when it comes to hiring staff and so forth. And the more of this that we can subcontract down to our small minority and business startups, I think the better we have on our own. And I would also just add, Mr. Simons is here. Hey, we've approved the money for the redo of Finley Park, and I hope that we're able to showcase our minority contractors and small business contractors all throughout the city of Columbia downtown when we get on that project. So if we can't find somebody, I bet you Ms. Sumter can.
I've already spoken to Mr. Simon. So we
I knew
looking
it.
for him right now, okay?
I knew it. Thank you for joining us
Well,
today.
Diane Russian just came in, which is another one of our contractors, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say how many years Dana has worked with us on helping to make this work, so thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us today, and I appreciate the positive message you bring every time we encounter you. So thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ms. Herbert, would you like to make the introduction on the mobile food market discussion?
Yes, I will. Thank you so much. I'm going to introduce Ms. Ashley Page Bookert. But for those of you all who don't know, we have a food policy committee. They've been meeting for several years. I think they started maybe in 2017 or something like that. They recently rolled out a website to show people how to quickly access food. And so this is actually a concept and project that they've been looking at before that. And I think that it's time for this particular project to come to fruition. And so we are not going to get into deep detail, but Ms. Page, could you come and give us an overview of where you all are right now? My recommendation, I don't mind sharing, is that we send this to OBO or similar, usually it's OBO or community development, to come back to us with the best model for how we can go forward with this. But I do want you to tell us a little bit about what you've been working on. Oh, and explain to people a little bit about what the mobile food market, what that concept is.
Well, thank y'all for inviting us to be a part of this meeting today. And I'm glad to meet our liaison, Joe, for the first time. We've been meeting virtually, and we'll have our first monthly meeting in person tomorrow. So glad to meet him face to face. What is a mobile market? A mobile market, think about kind of, the concept of a grocery store. Typically, you have to get in your car. If you don't have a car, you have to take public transportation. Then you have to go to the parking lot. You got to get out of your car, in the parking lot, walk to the store, get your groceries, come back to your transportation, and go back to your house. A mobile takes all of that away, and it can go right there, almost to your doorstep. And so really thinking about where the city has been, not just the city, but all over the United States, we've seen a lot of closures of grocery stores, which has been a trend we've seen over about the past 5 to 7 years. And so we know there are some communities that have lost more than others, but really we're looking at, one, we do want to try to bring in some more permanent grocery stores, but that can take a while. And so we kind of look at this as something to add in addition to also trying to recruit and retain more permanent grocery store options across the city. But that mobile grocery store is kind of that grocery store on wheels that can bring fruits, that can bring vegetables, that can bring dairy, other kind of staple items, and we're hoping to try to get some meat on there as well, right to neighborhoods. And something that we've said, we want to eventually have this be citywide, but we do think it is fair to say we need to prioritize neighborhoods who have lost more than some others. And so there are some communities across the city that don't have a lot of healthy food access, that have lost numerous grocery stores, while there are some across the city that still have grocery stores aplenty. So we do want to try to prioritize some of those neighborhoods who have dealt with a lot of grocery store loss within the past few years. And so we've been working on this project maybe 3 years, trying to bring this to fruition. We worked with a group to put together a business plan, which you all should have in your documents. And so that was the spring of last year. So some of those numbers, they are outdated. So please, I'm glad you mentioned don't look at those numbers. We know those numbers can be reduced. One of the things, I saw the mayor kind of peeped in, one of the things that we talked about with the mayor is we do not have to start with such a robust budget. If we want to kind of fast track this, we can kind of scale this down some. and then eventually scale it back up. There's USDA funds, there are private funds, there are public funds that we know we can work with foundations and others to be able to get additional funding to scale it up. But again, we've been working on this 3 years. So at this point, we don't care if it's a bus, if it's a van, if it's a truck and a trailer. We know community members are asking us to get healthy food in their communities. So I do want to point out that caveat that if you're looking at the budget, you say it's a little high, we are more than willing to work with you all, to work with city staff, to work with the figures to make it more affordable, to get something sooner rather than later. But we are hoping to work with city staff to move this project further along. But also want to point out this ties in well with our policy recommendations. So we were in this same room a little over 3 years ago presenting our 5 aspirational areas. And we did a refresh of those, and we presented a little bit about that when we presented about our GIS map. And the number 2 things folks care about right now when we went back to the community is healthy food access, and they want to see more entrepreneurship activity as it relates to food. And so we really think that this mobile market is a way to blend both of those recommendations together. We would love to work with either a nonprofit or a local small business to be able to get this mobile market up and running.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Page?
Before, just real quick, I think what you're looking at here is pretty cool. I know you've been at it for a long time. I would just ask that you all consider as part of your process as you look forward, City Council's passed, I think, some pretty amazing business-friendly type approaches since January that would really help if people wanted to open corner stores or neighborhood stores, again, small, grocery stores that especially
Food stores.
I mean, whether it's the things like the grease trap program we're going to talk about in a second, which gives, takes a huge startup cost. Some of the off-site parking requirements that have been waived. I think we've really made it a lot more economical. And sometimes when I get to ride through some of our older neighborhoods and see those stores, how they address some of those food deserts 100 years ago, the encouragement that y'all keep with what you're doing here, but they can do on recreating some of those mom and pop type food stores, I think would be a really cool thing in some of our areas of the city. Not all the areas, but some of them I think would be a great thing.
Any other questions or concerns? And so thank you so much, Ms. Bookert. I keep saying Paige.
It's okay. My husband won't mind. It's okay.
And I did want to say too, because we are working on things in the long term, we're working with the HBCU Technology Challenge, and we're trying to see what certain communities will need to do with respect to their census numbers and their per capita income to become competitive for chain grocery stores. So I think once all these pieces come together, but of course that takes a long time and we want to do something more immediate. So if there are no objections, I would actually like to refer this to OBO for further review and let them come back to us with some recommendations on the structure and the path forward.
Okay, so Ms. Harbert is making the motion that we refer this to OBO for further consideration. We're going to, I think, just as a new process, is we're going to vote on just the referrals, just so we can be on the record for that. So the motion has been made. Mr. Brennan seconds. If you'll just call the roll on to refer it to OBO for additional consideration.
Yes.
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 Thank
y'all
you,
so
Ms.
much.
Booker.
Thank you for
so
joining
much.
us
Thank
today.
Thank you.
Mr. Palin? Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. Okay,
So the last couple of meetings, we've had some discussion on the commercial FOG, the Fats, Oils, and Grease Forgivable Loan Program. Based upon those discussions and the input that we've received, I've met with staff in the various departments that'd be affected, so we've come back to talk about how we can look to improve the program. So the first slide here is really the current program. I know we've probably talked this one almost to death, but some of the key parts is currently it's a forgivable loan. It covers half the cost. The maximum amount is $5,000, and it's being funded out of an allocation out of the Water and Sewer Fund. Looking to update the program, it'll still require City Council through a future resolution to authorize this. It'll still be all food service providers in the city that can participate in it. We're looking at creating this, though, not as a forgivable loan. That forgivable loan also was over multiple years. This will be strictly a rebate. It'll cover the full cost, but the maximum rebate will still be $10,000, which is an increase from the $5,000. The funding for the program, we've looked to make a change. It'll actually be funded out of the hospitality collections from that particular food service provider, and we'll utilize half of their monthly actual collections. So I've given an example. So if they've collected $1,000 and business license has brought that in, we'll end up doing a rebate back to them of $500 until we cover the full cost that they've submitted to us or the maximum amount of $10,000. That was kind of quick. I know we've talked about this a lot. I didn't know if y'all have some
Any
questions
questions,
on
Mr.
this,
Brown?
and I'll talk briefly about next steps.
So just scale the average hospitality outlet restaurant. Is that $1,000 a year? That's an annual number of $1,000 in your example. Is that, what does the average restaurant pay in hospitality tax income?
I don't have that number on the top of my head. I use that just for simplicity of understanding, just a quick, we're paying out half.
That's a 20-year
So if
payback is what you're.
No, it'll be way more than $1,000 collected in H-tax a year.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because if it pays for itself in 4 or 5 years, I think that's fantastic. The 20 years that in your example.
Yeah, so if collections are 3%, if their weekly sales are $10,000, that's $300 in hospitality tax just for that 1 week.
Okay, perfect. And this is for new upgrades or new construction restaurants, new systems, basically.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The question that I would have too is, are we going to set a maximum number that we're going to allow? Because we will be pulling from the hospitality budget, what comes in. So there will be an impact. I know it's not hospitality dollars per se, but there will be a budgetary impact. And I'm just,
Shouldn't be.
well, it will be, because we won't be collecting what we were collecting. But so anyway, the bigger question is, are we looking at setting like a goal or max?
I think the plan was to make this available to anybody that starts up, and it really has no negative fiscal impact to the city, because technically if it weren't there, you wouldn't be collecting the H-tax regardless. Where in the past, we were taking money out of water and sewer and loaning it. And I do think this is personally, I think it's a better program for our small business folks, because they don't have to show this as a liability on their financial statements like they would have to do a loan. And I think one of the things that we've heard, especially from our small businesses, is that grease trap can be the toughest thing they do. Again, just like we were talking about on the food stores a second ago. I mean, today it's very difficult for a grocery operator to not have some type of prepared food outlet, just because it just works that way. And so I think this will have an impact on being able to recruit those small businesses too, Ms. Herbert. I'm excited about this one. I think this is a really good one. And if Jeff, you got additional?
Just our next steps. If you are good with moving this program forward from committee to council, we'll bring back a resolution to all of city council. We can have discussion then as well on the program. I'm sure we would probably want to do to go along with the resolution. Staff will complete the program and the process changes. We'll also begin marketing the new program. I think we'll also need, there will be some of that water and sewer dollars that were allocated to the program 2 years ago. There's going to be some remaining funds, so we're going to need direction from council on how to utilize those funds, whether it goes back to water and sewer or utilized for some method in this program. And then we anticipate full implementation no later than January 1.
And I do have a question. When we have the current program, about how many, do we know how many businesses have actually utilized it?
Yes, ma'am. I think we're around 7 to 8 so far, and some of that was during the pandemic and right as we rolled it out, so it wasn't highly used. And if you remember, the original program wasn't for new establishments; it was just a remodel, so that limited the penetration as well. So there's $70,000+ left in that original $100,000 of seed money that was put in. So.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I would make the motion that we refer this to council with a positive referral, and that our recommendation would be to return the unused money in January back to the water and sewer fund.
Do we want to look at the resolution first?
Well, the council will make the resolution. We just,
Well, yeah, staff is
so
going to put it together.
y'all are just recommending that we take it to council, and then we'll put together the resolution, and we should probably do a presentation. We've had the opportunity to talk to y'all 3 different meetings on this. We should probably revisit exactly, I kind of skipped through it, but the current program, we should remind everyone what the current program is, then talk about the advantages of the new program, and then if council's willing to move forward, then pass the resolution.
So send it to a work session for full council to discuss.
we just would recommend it up to council, and we'll let the city manager decide whether it goes to work session or straight to council first. Is that okay?
I would recommend, if you're thinking, I would recommend to full council so that everyone kind of knows what we're doing and they're on board early.
Sure.
How many readings does that resolution need?
1.
With you.
All right. Is there a second of the motion?
Second.
Mr. Brennan seconds.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you and Clint and Frank's and Ms. Wilson's hard work on that one.
Good one.
Ms. Hampton, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. So in discussing some of our business-friendly and streamlining efforts, the issue of streamlining zoning public hearing dates came up, and that we only hold those every other month. I've been asked in the past about, why we do that, and I do not know. It's time immemorial that we have always done that. The only thing that we can really think of is that it is required in our ordinance that we advertise for those 30 days in advance of the meeting. And so that sometimes may conflict with the Planning Commission meeting, because obviously you know that Planning Commission first hears the matters that come to you for your zoning public hearing, and then they come to City Council. And so right now what happens is if you come to the Planning Commission in November, you have to wait until the January meeting, therefore really kind of delaying the process. Whereas if you come in December, you get to go right to that January. So the idea is to quite simply hold a zoning public hearing every month. And, there's part of us, we've talked about doing this before. I mean, you all will then have to have a zoning public hearing every month, but you will get projects through potentially faster because they won't have that bi-month, if you will, use a football analogy, to wait for those matters to get before you. And largely they're rezonings or text amendments.
Any questions?
So how does that affect public notice, signs on properties? That's how a lot of neighborhoods find out about upcoming public hearings. What's the time frame change on that?
It wouldn't, what we'll need to do is make sure that we don't have any conflicts between the Planning Commission, the notice, and City Council. But that is required by state law. So we have to post and advertise. Currently, it's only, the law requires 15 days notice. The city does 30.
We're not changing that, correct?
That's correct. And the only thing is if we find some hiccups that we may have to adjust maybe to 25, but right now we're not proposing to change that.
In our normal zoning public hearings, we hear what, on average, maybe 13, 12, 13? So this will probably streamline it to maybe half dozen every hearing?
That's our hope, absolutely. I mean, so while, you've got more work each month, it's less of that work, if that makes sense.
And from a staff perspective, do you think that'll be easier to work, or is it going to end up being about the same?
Quite honestly, it'll probably be a little bit more work because right now you're able to put everything together every 2 months, but it's not appreciable. And, for the being able to get things quicker, I think that offsets it greatly. So we're fine with that. What we would do is put that calendar together, work with the clerk, the manager, assistant city manager, and bring that to council and see if that meets with you all's needs.
And just so I'm clear, we will then have one zoning public hearing per month.
Correct, and we would recommend that remain at the second meeting of the month, just because the planning commission meets the first of the month, I think the second week. So logistically, it would work out better.
And they meet monthly as well, correct?
Correct.
Any additional questions?
Sounds good to me.
We want to make a motion that we refer this to council with a positive recommendation?
Second.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye. Thank you, Ms. Hampton. Ryan? Showtime.
I'm sorry, excuse me, Mr. Taylor, I'm sorry, sir, are you going to just refer the last item out as part of your report to council versus having a discussion about that one at a work session? Is that just gonna be a recommendation out to the full council? Okay,
Yeah, we do it.
Oh,
include it in the work session.
Tell you, we'll refer it out and we'll let you, and you can generally make the call whether you want it at a work session or whether you want it straight to when you
Okay.
do your agenda meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Ryan, before you get started, this is basically, at our last meeting, we went through the city's reorganization plan for the Economic Development Office and the Development Plan for this year, and you're basically going to take and go through us with what came out of the last meeting as our revised final recommendation by the city manager and you for how we would operate next year and going forward.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's correct.
I just said that for the benefit of our guests in the room.
So I want to bring this back to y'all one more time and just give y'all a chance to kind of review the plan as is before you make the recommendation to go out to council at large. This is not a significant deviation from what we looked over last time. We took the feedback that you gave us, implemented it here, and went back and rewatched the council video of the meeting to make sure that we incorporate as much of your comments as possible. And so this is kind of where we're at with the document now. And so the beginning kind of outlines the strategic outcomes that council set forth, as well as council's statement for economic growth. Then we move into the business-friendly improvements section of the plan.
Excuse me one second, just for the benefit of our guests, and a lot of this, including that statement, came from the retreat that we had where all of council participated and with senior staff and everything, so.
Yes, sir.
So, okay, cool.
Yeah, and that was really the origination point, kind of the genesis for the rewrite of this. Section 1 outlines the business-friendly improvements that are already underway at the City of Columbia. And so the economic development will proceed with assembling about a 15-person advisory board. That will consist of a mix of existing business owners from various business size types. We want developers, commercial brokers. We want representation from various geographies around the city and various other business community leaders as well. We'll also be including members from the Columbia Council of Neighborhoods and a member from the Mayor's Minority Business Advisory Council, which were two of the specific recommendations that came up last time. Group will meet about once per quarter and provide recommendations and feedback on where the city can continue to improve business-friendly processes and procedures. Staff will work to increase support to create more predictability on the timing of permitting of projects and determine what steps that the city can take to improve our customer interactions with developers and investors and increase the speed of approvals. Work to determine if our staffing levels are commensurate with where they need to be to ensure that we're providing maximum efficiency, and look at where we can more effectively utilize technology to increase those efficiencies. Determine and define optimum turnaround times for small, medium, and large project sizes. Item number 3 is the relocation of the Economic Development Department to City Hall, which will provide better access to the mayor and city manager as we continue to work on more projects and better leverage our leadership and key decision makers who we want to be an integral part of our business and investment recruitment process. Number 4 is the business liaison position, already created in 2021, and will be co-located with economic development staff. Say hey, Greg. Number 5, keep city council and the city manager better apprised of the issues that are affecting our business growth and development. Coordinate with our other business-facing city departments, such as Office of Business Opportunities, Planning, Utilities, to make sure that we're identifying and addressing these challenges in a proactive and a comprehensive manner.
Does that include case studies from other successes in other municipalities? You know, as you travel, bringing back some of best practices.
Absolutely, and that's where we would like the business advisory group to help as well, as we talk with people who have done business in Raleigh, North Carolina, or Atlanta. Economic development, you don't have to, invent the wheel from scratch, but certainly there are other places out there that we could emulate, and we would like to examine that. Item number 2 is recruitment. Prioritize the importance of our urban development targets and new capital. Those items being restaurant, urban residential, hotels, corporate office, back office, retail shopping centers, grocery and food stores, new capital and investment, and businesses which utilize our local universities for talent and that operate in an urban environment.
And for the record, food stores that is really something. We looked it up after the last meeting.
After you corrected me.
And you know what? And for the record, you were right, Mr. Taylor. There is such a thing as a, quote, food store. So I want to make sure I note that on the record.
Well, I got a little recognition at the last meeting, so I thought it was worth including. Working to fill the newly created business recruitment position and structure the office to support the recruitment of urban infill projects and startups as well. Create more recruitment and engagement opportunities that, again, will involve the mayor, city manager, and leadership in that process. Create the data sets to sell the city. Tap into our local higher education expertise, such as Dartmore School of Business, to create modern data sets and demographics that aid in soliciting urban development targets. And use this information to create the updated pitch book for the city. Item 4, targeted geographic development efforts, focusing on a strong core and also our corridors where our opportunities are most prevalent. Include the priorities for developing in our high-traffic pin corners and nodes. Focus on areas of opportunity for future growth, such as North Main and Broad River Road, which are just as important as our continued focus in growing our downtown as well. Item 5, leverage USC and our other local colleges for recruitment opportunities, targeting alumni, students, parents, university affiliates, and others. Make sure that we are incorporating and involving all of our local colleges as much as possible. Include local college interns that we plan to bring into the department as well, who can help assist with our program development and execution. Identify opportunities to sell to students and others who have historical ties back to the city of Columbia. And this is something we see a lot of. We have this boomerang population that graduates and goes away for 3, 4, 5 years and tends to come back, you know, when they're kind of in young family stays. Now, we want to continue to tap into that more. Our 2022 targeted conferences and trade shows, and these are just a couple of items that are upcoming over the next few months. The ICSC Southeast Show coming up in Atlanta, Urban Land Institute Fall Meeting, which targets real estate developers and investors, Retail Live in Nashville, SCDC's Meet the Consultants, which will be in Atlanta, so that's an easy trip to make. Area Development, another site selection-oriented trip, and then Economics. A lot of the site selector type groups tend to meet towards the end of the year, so we'll make efforts to attend those if we can. Marketing, so establishing the city's competitive edge. Per council instruction, develop a new marketing strategy and collateral using our data sets to sell Columbia. We want to continue to lean into and leverage the promotion of our business-friendly improvements and tax modernization initiatives, which have generated a lot of positive feedback for the city of Columbia to date. Restaurant recruitment programs currently under development, and we'll follow up with a draft of that once we have that ready. And targeted recruitment efforts will focus on markets within driving distance where staff can easily identify small local regional prospects with an interest who would, you know, want a second or third location here in Columbia. Reinstate video production projects such as Developer Take Series, something that we had done kind of pre-COVID, and individual business showcases as well. So looking at more opportunities to put our local business owners at the forefront of the messaging. Leverage relationships with all 6 of our colleges to help us develop a strategy and a program. We want to continue to focus on technology and talent as a theme of our marketing as well. Implementation of new email automation capabilities, part out for Salesforce, that's underway now. We're finishing our training on that system. Should be done within the next 2 weeks on that. Look for creative ways to promote our inner city neighborhoods and to promote small businesses and make our areas fun and walkable. And then potential future addition of a research staff member to help assemble recruitment collateral. Something came up during the last meeting. We can keep our eye on that possibility over the next year.
And Ryan, I was going to say, I really, I used to love the business spotlights because when we did those, I kind of felt that those businesses also became ambassadors for the city of Columbia. So I know COVID took it out, but if we get back to that, I think that'll be pretty cool. And the videos, and they use them for commercials, so.
Right, moving on, entrepreneurship, tech talent, innovation, and creating a hub for creative business. Our continued support is ongoing for GrowCo and the Boyd Community Innovation Center. And there's continued partnerships with USC and tech and cybersecurity as well. The SC Decoded Conference is going on this week, which is USC's heavily involved in. If anybody has the opportunity to attend that on Thursday, that will be down at the Convention Center. That's big on cybersecurity. And then Friday morning, I believe USC has a Verizon innovation demonstration that they're doing over by the Horizon building at 8 o'clock Friday morning. Support for involvement with the new initiatives such as the Builders and Backers programs. That's the accelerator program coming out of GrowCo. Direct office involvement, supporting the Growth Summit, which will be coming up in just 5 weeks on October 21st and 22nd. Continued working on new creative ways such as pitch pilots. You know, these are, most people kind of refer to them as hackathons, but these are opportunities where you can get together city, city and/or major employers and connect them with your creative class people and your innovators to present these urgent unsolved problems that are in need for, a creative type solution, and then connect that with the entrepreneurs and folks, who might can bring something to the table or build a program from scratch. And I know Councilwoman Herbert, you mentioned during the last meeting that there's a HBCU-oriented pinch competition. It's something that we would want to look at or emulate as well. Ongoing efforts to identify small business growth opportunities and direct city staff and city council to support where it's most needed to provide policy changes and assistance to support our small business community. And then kind of along the lines of marketing, finding ways to promote these founder success stories. So the person that goes out and starts that business here in Columbia and grows it up and spins it off, how do we continue to bring their messaging to the forefront? Existing business retention and expansion, ensuring our community vitality. So continuing to support outreach efforts that reach out to businesses of all types, sizes, and locations across our community, and retain our focus on assisting the growth of our small women and minority-owned businesses as well. And per ACM Palin's great recommendation last time, they involve our city leadership more in some of our retention calls and outreach efforts. Have you made any calls yet, Jeff?
All right, Jeff.
Be careful, most feared words for a business guy is, "Hi, I'm from the government. I'm here to help you."
And then our increased outreach to our commercial realtors and developers, they're at the front lines, so really understanding from them what challenges they're seeing with the new businesses coming in or the growth and development. And then continued support for council in the process as we continue to work on the tax modernization efforts and helping reduce the burden of the commercial taxes. And then the last couple bullet points at the bottom were a couple of the measure success items that we had, such as tracking business license growth, new jobs, capital investment, city population growth year over year, and then certain city revenue streams such as property taxes, accommodations tax, H-tax, and water sewer revenues as well. And that's the update from the plan.
Ms. Herbert, any questions?
I just want to say I want to see us be very proactive in going out and creating the vision for property owners for maybe the neglected properties they have. I always think, and I've talked to you about it, that empty Family Dollar on Rosewood, where the owner is just not engaged and not really looking to make a difference. So if we at the city, through your new staff you're putting together, can take that on in general through all of our corridors, whether it's talking to a nonprofit, a religious institution that has, some property they don't use, how can we make the most efficient, put it back on the tax rolls, best quality of life bang for our buck. So I would encourage you to continue and really pursue that. But this is a wonderful, well thought out plan that you took from comments from City Council, and I can't wait to see the milestones come together.
Ms. Herbert, any comments, questions?
No, I think it's very good, and I'm looking forward to the implementation. And let us know what help you need from us.
Very well done. How do we, on this, does City Council approve this, or?
No, sir. I think it would be a great endorsement from the full council, and I can certainly bring it forth at a work session, and we can go through it again. We've gone through it now several times, and I hate it for Ryan to literally maybe regurgitate, because y'all have been such a part of it, but I think you're exactly right. All the council needs to embrace it.
What I like to do is make the motion that our economic development and community development endorses this, and would ask you, I think, to make a full presentation at either the next workshop or the next council.
Okay, we can do that.
I think for general information purposes, it's, everyone should know we have the business recruiter job posted. So that search is underway. And I know Ms. Wilson is also exploring some other opportunities with other personnel that we've talked about in here, Mr. Brennan, that especially will lead to infill. You know, how do we close those holes in our neighborhoods with new single-family houses and things like that, that I think we're all really excited about. So thank you both for a very good job.
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
The Economic Development Committee, is that something that your office is going to form? Am I reading that correctly? You're going to recruit the
advisory
the
group. that
advisory?
we
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Mhm. So have you started that process?
Kind of got an outline of, wanted to break it out by small business, medium, large, make sure we had representation from all 4 districts. And then we've got the Council of Neighborhoods Advisory Group. Not reached out to anybody yet. I want to
Gotcha.
get through this first. I figure
There'll be rotation terms just to make sure that we get the fresh ideas, fresh faces on there.
Sure.
Perfect.
And can I assume that you're open to recommendations from from council members?
feel free to. Yep.
We really appreciate you all's hard work on this with us. I think we've learned a lot through the process. Ryan has done a really good job of looking at ways to streamline, but having a very nimble team that we're assembling. Doesn't have to be a whole lot of them. We're learning to do, everybody jump in, and it's going to be able to flex and do multiple tasks, including some work that Jeff and I are going to do, and we're excited about it, honestly. It's very exciting work. One of the things, in addition, I think Ryan, Mr. Chair, wanted to touch upon was some of those partner agreements. We don't have to take it up today, but that is another item that we want to streamline. I think that's the intention of this council to do, for us to do that. So Ryan, did you want to leave some information with the committee, or how did you want to handle that?
Yes, ma'am. I've printed out some of our
I think they're right there under your stack, because I was going through your stack. I'm sorry.
were our most recent partner agreements from fiscal year 21, 22. Got it. Kind of where we left things off for last year. Got each organization there, some of the work assignments that they picked up.
Or if you can sit and do it.
So you've got the groups listed there, the work assignments that, some of the action items that they had that they were responsible for the year, and then an outline of what their contract cost is annually.
All right, we'll put that on the agenda for our October meeting,
Okay.
if that schedule works.
Absolutely, sure.
Now, let me just say, the enthusiasm I'm seeing for our city and business startups right now is as high as I believe I've ever seen. I think the mayor's at a ribbon cutting at least 4 or 5 times a week. So, thank you for what you guys are doing. I think it's being spread around pretty good. I mean, we're not seeing it all concentrated in one place. And I think what we're learning is we got to go tell our story outside. We got a great story to tell with 55,000 college students here, and the things we're working on to make to better the soil conditions to grow our own headquarters and small businesses. Just, I think that's a message that we got to get out and tell everybody about. So Ryan, thank you for what you're doing. Teresa, thank you for your leadership on this. And I think somebody will make a motion that we
Mr. Chairman, I'd make the motion to move the Columbia Economic Development Department Action Plan update forward to council with positive approval from the subcommittee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Aye.
Yes.
All right.
And Mr. Taylor, I did want to add to, I guess we have to start working more collaboratively, because the Affordable Housing Task Force, one of the issues that they have realized is we have a lot of churches who do land banking, but don't know how to develop the property. So we're actually going to work on putting together a training to kind of let them know, because a lot of them have a lot of property, and they get a lot of property, and they come to the city and say, give us, $20 million to help us build on it. We aren't able to do that, but a lot of them just need to know steps to be able to develop and do the affordable housing that they want to do. So we'll bring that at an appropriate time.
I think we ought to put that probably on the agenda. We're going
At the appropriate time.
okay. I was going to give it to you next month if you wanted it.
Well, let me check and see if the committee is ready. Yeah, if the committee is ready, we can do it next month.
All right. Well, that concludes our public business of today. Mr. Brown, will you make a motion that we go into executive session?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we enter into executive session, discussion of matters relating to the proposed location, expansion, or provision of services encouraging location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area served by the public body pursuant to 30-4-70A5.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?